So today's topic is going to be about how much passive income do you need to retire? This is a question that I think of often, and about every 6 months, I sit down and I really reconcile my thoughts with this. As we grow, this answer can change, but today I thought this would be a good topic. How much passive income do you need to retire? And I think we're all at different stages of life as we're going through this podcast. Some of us are, some people out there are, in their mid 20s and they're looking at this like they're trying to establish a way to make income right now or make more income, right? Then you've got people out there that are, maybe in their late 30s, early 40s, got some kids and, they've got a different life that they've got to live. They've got a lot of things that they've got to pay for their kids. And then you've got some people who are listening to this that are going to be, empty nesters or retired. And this is going to hit them a different way where it's like, okay, if they haven't thought of passive income quite yet, this is going to be a conversation that they're going to have to reconcile as far as what they're going to do for their future. But, you know, I just wanted to have this conversation because I get asked often, about my rental properties or a few of my other streams of income that I have that I would consider passive income. And so that mixed with, I just think that people are seeking a way out of work and they don't know when that will ever be. And so I always try to take complex situations and break them down into how can control the situation. I think anxiety is created when we think about things in the future and we don't have any type of plan. And so it's not always the situation that you're in. It's do you have hope or a plan that you can get out of it? And so that's why I wanted to do this podcast on this topic so that people could, figure out some type of framework that works for them that would make them feel like they're in some type of control with their financial future. So I just want to go through a few of the ways that I think of wealth, and there's no right or wrong to this. This is just how my brain thinks. So wealth, there's the your bills are paid. So passive income, like the first version of wealth to me is like you have enough passive income for your bills to be paid for. And so like it's just that money that comes in passively, the bills are paid. It starts getting you to a spot where you start feeling like you're in a different place. Like when you have enough passive income for your bills to be paid for, it's like you don't feel like you're controlled as much by debt. And that's really what debt is out there. It's just something that's controlling you. And, we're just ingrained at a young age that we're supposed to sign up for all of this debt, student loans, car loans, mortgages, credit card debt. The list goes on of things that we just feel obligated to sign up for and that we're kind of preached. And if you think about it, it's because they want you to be in debt. If you're in debt, then you always have to go to work and then you always have to pay off that debt. You've got to pay off the interest. So it's kind of this game that we're in that you want to figure out how to get out of as quickly as possible. So the first form of wealth for me is, when your bills are paid for. Then there's a second version of wealth. I mean, like there's like levels to it. So there's level two, which is bills plus lifestyle. So you make enough money passively to pay your bills and then also live your lifestyle. That would be, vacations, eating out as much as you want, going to concerts or sporting events, things like that. So it's the first level is bills paid, second level is bills and lifestyle. Then the third level to me is having enough passively coming in to pay your bills, live your lifestyle, and to have enough money to reinvest. So that's another level, one that I'm seeking, where you can actually pay your bills monthly with your passive income, live your lifestyle, and still have enough to just keep reinvesting so that your wealth can just keep compounding and growing over time. So how much would you need to invest? So what you've got to start thinking of now is how much would I need to invest to spit off a return that would live my lifestyle? And so now this is where I want you to, and this is going to sound like something that you might not want to do, but this is who I've always been. So it was easy. But you want to sit down on paper and you want to write things out. You really want to like write things out and decide like, what's the direction I want my life to go? And this sounds so odd, but yet there's so much peace to it. Like when you get out a Google Doc and you start typing and you say like, this is the direction I want my life to go. It's so freeing. Like I used to have I do. I still have a note on my phone that says like things I don't want to do. And there's something freeing about the things that I don't want to do anymore. And some of them I have to do still for my company. But it's just, even though I have to do it, it's freeing to know that I have some sense of control, that I have a place where I go write down the things that I don't want to do. And I look at that list often and I think, is there any way that I could leverage this out to somebody else? Is there any way that I could stop doing this? Or is this just my time in my life and my business where I have to continue doing this? And that's fair. And so it's not that I'm not going to do it anymore. There's peace to knowing that there's a spot where I can put it. It's almost like a venting list of things that I can throw on there. And I'm just like kind of laughing as I put things on there because it makes me feel in control. So this is kind of that same stuff as we're like, this is a story you want to tell. So when you sit in front of your Google Doc or a journal or however you would write down things, is write a story. My coach once told me to act like you're living in a movie, like act like somebody is writing a screenplay about your life and what's the direction you want it to go. And I took that very seriously. He not only told me write down where you want the direction you want your life to go, but he also told me to write down what I look like while I'm going through that. Like, what's the perfect version of myself? And that was interesting when he asked me to do like, what's the perfect version of yourself? Like, I remember writing, he had said, like, what do you look like? What's your hair look like? I remember writing down what I wanted my hair to look like on a daily basis. He put, like, he said, like, when do you feel the best? And I had noticed when I did this exercise with one of my coaches that I like when my hair is fresh. Like I like when it's cut and it looks nice. And so it was so odd to me that I realized just with like haircuts, I started scheduling them every 4 weeks with my hairstylist instead of doing them like willy nilly, like every 6 or 7 weeks. And just like that one move right there was from my coach saying, write the story that you want your life to be. And how do you want to look like how do you want to look while you're going through the story? And you start just analyzing things and saying like, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, and you start going more of the direction you want and less of the direction you don't want. So anyways, he told me to sit down and write a screenplay of how I wanted my life to go and then just live that life. But it could feel so weird as you're doing that. You almost can be writing it down and saying like, this could never happen. Now, if that's the direction that your mind goes, I would start challenging you on that and start allowing it to realize that good things can happen. But like, that's freeing to me, is just writing down like, hey, this is like in 2 years, this is where I would want to be. And as you're writing that down, the only thing that happens to people is they start getting nervous because as they're writing down the direction they want to go, there's like a new person that you would have to become in order to get that. Like there would have to be new disciplines that you would have to start doing or new daily routines that you would have to start doing daily. So as you're writing the story, realize the uncomfortability of it is the new version of you that you're going to have to become to get there. And that's where it really becomes a journey and it's super fun. But write that story down. Right? Where do you want to go? And why I say to write a story is because how does this lead back to passive income is write that story. Like, where do you want to be? Like, let's say you want to retire at 45 or 40 or 55, whatever you want your story to be, start writing it. Like I could think when I did this, I was thinking of where I wanted to travel and how I wanted to be able to work from anywhere in the country. And so that's the stuff you want to start writing down because it's going to break down into the next stage that we're going to go through. And it's going to be with the story that you told and what you want to be doing. How much money would you need to actually accomplish that? Like how much passive income would you need to be coming through your door in order to live that story? And so now here's where I know people go to is when we start talking about passive income, the next thing we're going to do is like, well, you have to invest into something to get passive income. Well, to invest into something, you have to make more money than your bills, right? So this is where I start getting into a conversation with someone. I'm going through this and they're like, Chris, I have so much debt. I don't know what to do with myself. And that's where I would say like, getting out of debt is like the first form of investing. And that's kind of like a Dave Ramsey type statement is like that. If majority of your paycheck is going towards just bills and debt, then getting out of debt will be your best form of investing because you just want to get your check back. Like if you're getting commission checks right now and they're all getting deployed towards debt, you eventually want to start getting that debt paid off so that when you get commission checks, it's not getting deployed towards debt. It's getting deployed towards a really cool lifestyle or it's getting deployed towards investments. But So when people start talking to me about, hey, I'm in really, big debt, that's when I want to go into like a massive action conversation. Like you've got to start having more massive action in your life. And people who know me hear me say that all the time, like massive action. And it's true. It's like you've got to start doing things on a faster level. And I had listened to a podcast probably about 9 years ago. This guy Jordan, who I knew had a podcast, and I really liked his frameworks, his mindset, more of his thought process. But he would talk about, he had this one podcast that I wish I could find, but it was on compounding time. And compounding time, he would say what some do in a year, some figure out how to do in a month. And what some do in a month, some figure out how to do that in a week. And what some do in a week, some figure out how to do that in a day. And it was just this framework of how he processes. Like there are some people who just they compound time. Like some people who there's realtors out there right now that sell 4 homes a year. And there's realtors out there that sell 42 homes a year. And there's realtors out there that sell 500 homes a year. And I know realtors that sell 1,600 homes a year. So how is that person doing that? They're compounding time. So to bring this down in just very basic versions is start trying to compound time. Like start thinking of like, oh, what do I want to get done this week? And then start looking at that and saying like, could I figure out how to massive action, get what I need done this week in one day? And now that can start getting tiring, but like that's how I try to live my life right now is like I look at it and say like what is somebody doing in a month and I want to do that in a week, or what is somebody doing, in a month and I want to do that in a day. And so it's just getting things done faster. It's not oh I want to do it this week. I want to do this today. And so that's the people who to get out of debt and to start getting into investing, it needs to be more of a massive action and a compounding time. Like I said, there are people that I talk to that tell me like when I ask them like what their goal is, and they'll be like, "Oh, I'm going to do an open house this week," and I know their financial situation. I'm almost like, "Why wouldn't you do 8 this week?" Like why wouldn't you do 8 this week? Like let's compound time. Let's get 8 done this week. If you're going to do one a week, it's going to take you 2 months to experience. If you're going to do one open house a week, and you want to do you want to get through 8, like why wouldn't you just instead of 8 weeks going by, get 8 done in one week and see those results so much quicker? And so what's happening though when we start talking about the compounding time or massive action question is it's not that we need more time, it's that we waste too much time. We don't prioritize things. So, and I know this to be true because I go through this at different stages of my life, and I'm going through it right now with certain things. So I mean it was a few years ago where I kind of kicked out sports in my life, and I'm not saying that you won't find me watching a game. Like last night I was watching the Suns playoff game. So it's not like I'm not on a high horse with this stuff. It's just I used to always on Sundays make sure that I had blocked off in my schedule to watch the Cardinals game, and I'd watch a lot of the basketball games. And it just I got to a point where like if I'm sitting down that day casually watching TV and that's on, I'll watch it. But like I'm not making an appointment in my calendar to watch, grown men go live their dreams, while I'm sitting there watching them, rooting for them, and wearing someone's jersey with their name on the back of, with their name on the back of my, on the jersey that I'm wearing. I'm just not that person. Like I don't want to, I don't think I'm going to look up at 65 years old and wish I would have did more of that. I wish I would have probably spent more time on my future and living my dreams and not watching people on the field live their dreams. So that's just that, right? So there's so many other things. So when we start thinking of massive action and compounding time, we start thinking, oh man, I need more time. And I don't think we need more time. I think we need to prioritize um, our time. And I think we need to not add things into our life. I think we need to really start eliminating things and eliminating things like that aren't important. Like I know a lot of people listening have family, they got kids, and it's like you got to keep those in your life, right? Obviously that's a priority to you, but it's all these other things that like you don't have to give your time to: social media, Netflix, hanging out with friends, just at the bar, or for 3 and 4 hours. It's just things that you could eliminate if you wanted to find the time. If you don't want to find the time, that's totally fair. There's many people that will tell me, Chris, I love doing this stuff. And I'm like, if that's what you love, then do it. Just don't wake up at 65 and have a weird, don't wake up at 65 and feel like a trick was played on you because time kept going on while you did what you wanted to do. And if you feel like when you get older that you wasted it, just make sure that you're thinking of that now and how you're going to feel about that. So I really enjoy the sitting down time. And so this is where I'm going to go back to the passive income, but you've got to start thinking and you've got to start reconciling your thoughts. I call thinking time reconciling my thoughts, and I do this on a consistent basis. I was actually this Saturday, went by my back patio and pulled up my laptop, and I went to my notes on my Google Drive, and I pulled up one of my folders. It's basically where I like download, my thoughts. And it's also a spot where I write like my stories of where I want my life to go. And I pulled up one that was really cool. It was actually, I had dated this one. I don't date them all. And now that I realize how important it made, like, how special it was when I read this and I had the date, it makes me realize I'm going to start time stamping and date stamping all of my stuff that I write, just so I can think of who I was when I wrote that. But I remember, or this was something that I read this Saturday, and I wrote this in October 2021. And when I wrote this, I remember I was in Huntington Beach, and I was at a stage in my career where I wanted things to go a little bit differently. And I was writing down all the things in my business that I wanted to be done differently. And so I just wrote down like who I wanted to be. And it started off with be happy. And then it just went into some values that I wanted to have. And it was, controlling my time, and not being on call for anybody, and having things structured in my business where anything that I felt on call, somebody else did. And it had being able to do my routines in my business and my personal life from anywhere in the country. And it just went on. And what was cool is I was sitting there and I just got chills when I was, reading it, because I haven't looked at that in probably 6 months at least. And just to think that sitting there at one time and having that just thought process, it wasn't even about reading it daily. That was the important part. It was more that I had wrote it down, that I had taken my thoughts. I sat there for probably, many hours and wrote that. And it's not like I said, I don't think the secret sauce was reading that daily. The secret sauce was sitting there and writing down where I wanted the direction of my life to go. And it's so cool to see like it was pretty dead, it's pretty spot on with where or how I have my business designed right now. So that was, a time in my life where I can tell by how I wrote that I was in a spot where, I was making really good money and I was really busy, but I felt a little overworked and I didn't want to have that feeling in the future. And so I sat there and I felt like I created a new version of me on paper. And then I had to go on a mission to become that new version of myself through daily actions and daily routines. But also, I remember in March of 2020, I did the same thing. And this will lead more into like the passive conversation. I remember in March of 2020, I had wrote down, and that was at a spot where I really wanted more passive income in my life. I was probably 37 at that time. And I knew like, hey, like time's going fast, right? Like I'm going to be 45 sooner than later. And so I sat there and I was on my back patio and I just reconciled some thoughts. And that's where I just wrote down a plan of like, hey, this is what I want, right? This is how much passive income I want coming through the door. So that I had to break down some things. I'm like, okay, well, where would I go invest money into to get that much passive income? So I had to find the financial vehicle. For me, it was rental properties, it was homes. So it was like, how much passive income do I want coming through my door to live my story? So it was a story of what I wanted my life to look like, feel like, traveling, eating out, giving, living a good life. So I wrote the story first. And then that led me to how much money I thought I needed to have passively to live that story. Then I needed to, find the financial vehicle that I was going to invest in. And that was through homes. And then I needed to figure out like how much money did I need to invest in order for that to spit me off the return that I needed to live my story. And then that's where I thought, okay, now that this is how much money I need to have, I had to break down, well, this is what I would actually have to make to get that accomplished. And, that's why when people are like, how did you buy 16 homes in like less than 2 years? It was seriously sitting down and reconciling my thoughts on the back patio and saying, in order to get to where I want to go, this is what I would have to do. But I'm telling you, every time I do this, I get nervous because as you're writing the story's fun, right? The story is the best part. And there are some people who just write the story of where they want their life what they want their life to look like and what they want their life to be. And the story is the fun part to write. It seems kind of weird, but it's really, really peaceful. And it's after you write the story and you start adding up how much money it would cost to live that story, that's not even the worrisome part yet, because you're like, okay, well, I could work and make enough money to live that story. But when you start looking at the story and it's traveling a lot and it's doing a lot of these cool things, you realize like, wait, I can't probably actively be working every day if I'm traveling a lot and I'm doing this stuff. So it starts taking you to the zone where it almost you have to go passive income and not active income, because most people's stories that they write on what they're doing in the day, that the fun story that they're writing, golfing, every day or traveling every 2 weeks, you start realizing like, okay, like my active income on me going to work or owning my business, I can make enough money to live some of the story, but you realize that you couldn't truly live it. So it'd have to be passive. So that's why this is a fun process. But like I said, when I was writing that story, it went to, okay, well, what the story says, I would have to be getting a lot of passive income. And I was like, well, how would I get that passive income? Well, this is how much I'd have to invest. Well, where would I invest it? Into homes? How much would I invest? And when I realized like how much I'd have to invest, that's when it starts getting to that point where you want to stop, because you're like, whoa, like I don't think I could accomplish that. And I'm challenging you, sit there and stop saying that you can't accomplish that, because you either do two things. You either accomplish that with massive action and live the life that you want to live and have that story play out, or you get older and you're just living the same life. And I'm saying there's nothing wrong with this. Like, I'm not judging anybody and I'm not even where I want to be. I'm just saying I'm challenging everybody that we've got to stop and think on a consistent basis. Like, we've got to make thinking time. We've got to make reconciling our thoughts and thinking time a priority, where we say, like, we can't just be in the rat race every day. Like, we can't just wake up and, as realtors, just wake up, go show homes, list properties, come home, hang out with the family, eat dinner, watch a little bit of TV, wake up the next day, do the same thing. Now, I'm saying there's times and places for it, but we got to start thinking like, how would we get ahead? And the only way we can get ahead is if we actually get to a spot where we're massive action, really controlling our time, getting to the spot where we can pay for our bills, get out of debt, and then we can, go on nice vacations. And then we have enough money left over to invest in things that can spit us off a passive income return. But those are the few times, like, and I did this a lot over my life. I've been, selling real estate for 17 years. I've owned a business since I was, 16 years old. So like, this is just how I was raised. Like, my mom was we had a tri-level house at one time, and I remember in the bottom level there was this office, and she had a desk and a computer and a calculator. It was super clean, and well, I would walk in there all the time, and my mom would have a piece of paper out and a pen and a calculator. And I had learned early on in life, like, I'd walk in there and she'd just be thinking, and I'd learned early on in life, because she had told me this, that you can solve so many of your problems in life by just one piece of paper, a pen, and a calculator. And I'm so thankful for her doing that and her being an example or a model for me, because that's just somebody that I love and I respect. And I've seen how much wealth she's created in her life, on how she structured her time and thinking. And there was so much time. And don't get me wrong, she worked hard, really hard. But there was a lot of time that she had in her calendar where it was just self-thought and reflection. And it was where she wanted to go and how she would get there. And, with paying off this, like, she'd break it down and she would gamify it. When can I get this done? And if I sell a few more jobs over here, I could get it done quicker. And it just puts you in the spot where, like, you feel absolutely in control. So I've been doing this my whole entire life, but I can think of a few times in the last like 2-3 years that I can say that, like, I could explain to people that they would even see it. It was the March of 2020 with the rental properties. And that one was fun to reconcile, right? Because I went through like a new version of myself through that process. Like, there were times, like, people who know my story know, like, as I was going through that journey, like, there was times where I remember sitting at my kitchen island. This probably happened twice in the 2 years, where I was kind of crying at my kitchen island, and my wife was just like, "What's up?" And I'm like, man, the pressure of trying to get all this done is so overwhelming. Like, selling 140 homes a year and buying a rental property like every 5 weeks, and it just keeps going on, right? But like, no, like, I was just crying for myself, right? But like, she understood and there was a lot of pressure, but that pressure to be like, there was times where I looked at, I'm like, I can quit, but I would sit there and think, I'm the only person here, right? Like I've got to get to where I want my wife and I to go. And so like I've got to do this. Like there's times where you could have these little pity parties and that's fine. But then I had to instantly I would just go and be like, and I would do this hype. Like I felt like I said, like I was at a movie, like if somebody was watching that scene in the movie and they saw Bowers crying at the kitchen island, that like all of a sudden the Rocky music theme song came on. And I was just like, no, I've got this, right? And then I would just go on a tear for a while. And then I would get to a spot where it was the sad music, and then that would happen again. And then I'd go on a 3-week montage of where it was just Rocky music again. But that's how my brain processed that. Like, hey, no one's going to cry for you. Like, let's get back to it. And so that was March. I remember in October 21. So you got to think. So like that was March of 2020 when I had that. I want to go on the rental, buying a lot of rental properties, reconciling those thoughts. And then October 2021, you can think now that was, a year and a half later. And that's where I was starting to think like, I need to have my life managed differently where I can travel more. Right. So you can see how these go through stages. And then it was Saturday where I sat down and I wrote another story of where I wanted my life to go over the next year. And it was so just fun to see as you're piecing this story together. It's almost like chapters in a book. It's like, okay, that was my March 2020 rental, chapter. And then October 2021, that was my how to leverage my life out chapter. And then my February, or this one that I just did this Saturday, that was like my new chapter that I want to go through for the next year. And I'm so excited to look back in a year and see where that went. So that's where I know this podcast was a lot about me, and it's not that I wanted it to be. I wanted people to see like this is really just self-talk. Like these podcasts, sometimes when I do these solo ones, they're sometimes like therapeutic because I feel like I'm just talking to myself. It's funny because I think it was Saturday. Yeah, it was Saturday when I was putting together some of this new plan, and I started writing my story of where I wanted my life to go in the next year. And then uh, I started getting to the passive income portion of like, okay, and then I started getting to like, this is the new version of me that I'd have to become. And this is the massive action that I'd have to do to accomplish this. And I go through that zone where I wrote the story and I started writing down, breaking it all down. I started getting nervous. And I remember texting a few of my buddies, a few really good friends that I'm in a group chat with that really hold me accountable that I respect a lot. And I told them like, hey, man, I'm making some really big goals today for the next year. And they always ask me, hey, what are those goals? We want to support you. And that's why I love my friends. And I told them, I was like, hey, I'm still at the stage right now where I'm a little nervous. So I'm just talking out loud to myself and trying to challenge myself on my limiting beliefs. I'm almost on the back patio, um, arguing with myself because my mind would start saying like, no, you can't accomplish that. But then I'd be like, no, I can accomplish this through massive action, no self-doubt, no insecurities, and just get this done. Right. So I was joking with them. I was like, I just turned on my pool fountain so that hopefully it's loud enough now that the neighbors can't hear me so they don't think I'm crazy. But that's what I do. So I reconcile thoughts. I talk to myself. So this podcast, like I said, is a little therapeutic. I wanted to go through this just, you know, with a microphone in front of me because this is how I process things. And so I just wanted you to hear that. And so like I said, I'm not at the place I want to be yet. I'm just always trying to be a new version of myself and grow. So I don't want this to ever sound like I'm ever getting on a high horse. I've never no judgments on these solo podcasts. There's never me saying I'm doing it the right way. I'm like seriously just laying it out with a microphone on how I think. I just made some notes today on a walk while I was walking, and this is how I was like, this is what I'm going to deliver today is just some of my thoughts. And so, I want to challenge you just to start getting that deep thought time in your calendar, start blocking it off, like be okay with just sitting down, like blocking off an hour to go sit in a space where you have no distractions, no phone, no internet, and allow your brain to just think. Just allow it to think and just start asking yourself big questions like, how would I get there? Like, who would I need to be to get there? What version of myself do I need to change? What do I need to eliminate to get there? When you start asking yourself these big questions, it starts allowing you to do it. But I really want passive income to come into more people's life, but I know that it won't happen unless you start figuring out how to write the story of your life on where you want it to go, until you start breaking it down into what you need to do, and until you start putting in like massive action and start compounding time, because the days go by so quick and the days go by so quick, and the commission checks just keep going to bills or keep going to our vacations, and they keep going to us having a comfortable life, but it never gets to that next tier because we're not going fast enough. It's not getting, it's got, the commission checks got to get past the bills and past the vacations and past the cool lifestyle. The commission checks got to start getting to that next, that fourth layer where we start investing it into things that can spit us off a return. And there's no way to explain that than just massive action. But I want money to be talked about more. So anybody that knows me that's listening to this, let's start having these conversations more. Let's start talking about passive income. Let's not talk as much about GCI and how much money came to the door. Let's start talking about how much money did we keep? How much money did we invest? And how are we living quality lives while we're selling real estate? But thank you guys for listening to this podcast today. I know it was a lot of self-talk, but that is how I talk to myself. Sometimes it is a little bit hard. Sometimes it seems a little bit crazy because I do chat with myself, but I enjoy you guys, or I thank you guys and enjoy you guys being here and listening to today's show. Have a good day.